In the first video for Health Management Pro, we covered a great deal of information here and the navigation and the prescriptions and the map. What we're going to do now is we're going to look at the Do Action button and explain what this does. The Do Action button is used to create new records. Now, you're not going to see this button on every screen because this is one of the major screens and it's the one where you create the record. If you say, for example, go to the website or one of the other screens and it has another new record button, then you can create new records there. If you do not see a new record button on this Do Action dropdown, you do not create new records in that screen. Simple as that. The video help is for each screen. It goes to the master screen on YouTube where this particular set of lessons or tutorials are at. And in this case, there's only going to be 2 of them. So you would click here, and what it would do is it would take you in and then show you this video or the one that was preceded this. There is a ability now, when you're looking at these screens and you're looking at the fields at the top, you can do finds on those. And what that would do is it would locate records that had the information that was in the field. And you would do a find by saying Start Find. It would rotate, and then it would show you this screen like this. You would click in here, and in this case, if I put in Verde for the Verde Valley Hospital, and then I went ahead and hit go or go back up on the button up here and hit Perform Find, then it would show that record. So let's go ahead and do that. Now before I do it though, I want to point out, if I had the incorrect information in here, it's going to bring up a little dialog in the middle of the screen. It's going to say either you modify the record or cancel it because there's nothing that pertains to what you put in the field that is correct. So you would go ahead and go either change it, modify it by clicking it, or cancel. Now, in many cases, you might see one or more places that maybe a physician has an office in the Verde Valley Medical Center. There might be multiple. If it's multiple, you're going to see a number of records come up, and that would be indicated, and there's a little bullet round 0 down at the bottom. When it pops up where it has a Done button on it, if you click on that, it's going to show you the number of records in selection. That means that if there are 1, 2, or 3, or 20, that's what's going to show in there. You'd be on record number 1 of 20, and that way you would use the next, first, and prior records, these little buttons right here, to move through those records. Or what you would do is go to a list view under the navigation. In this case, for the doctors themselves, you would click on the Medical Health Management Pro screen list view, and then it would list all the doctors that were there. And you can click on a button at the end to pick the appropriate doctor you want to put in there. The next thing you're going to see on there is you have Omit and Show Omitted. If you're looking at a list view or even at one of these records and you want to omit from the search that you did up here with the find, you could go ahead and omit one record or more, and then you could say Show Omitted, and then only those records would show. A lot of times it's a good reason to do that if you're in a list view and you want to omit some of the records that you actually want to bring up in print and show those as in print. You would omit them, then you would say Show Omitted, and then they would come up. The next thing is you can export data from the records. And the way you do this is you go to the appropriate screen where you want to export things using the navigation, and you would go to that screen and you click on Export, and then the record and fields for that particular screen and table would be shown, and you can export those. Export starts out when you click on it, that it comes up and you pick the actual screen that you're in for that table, and you have a set of choices where you can export that information, either tab, merge, HTML, a spreadsheet, a database, or comma separated. Now, comma separated is used in a lot of places, so you have to check with, say, like for example, Gmail. If you want a list of people to be sent to a group that you want to create in Gmail, or say in Outlook, you could do that. There is a set of fields that you can pick, and the way you pick fields is you check or uncheck. Now, if it's unchecked where there's no blue check here, that means they're going to be eliminated from the list of fields and they won't be able to be in your export. So these are exports that are shown. Now, anytime they have a double quotation, not quotation, but marks ahead of it, those are records from a subtable, and they will be able to be sent out of here, but they may not be appropriate for what you want to actually use. So you may want to just pick the ones that are the master records, like address and city and so forth, the ones that don't have the colons ahead of it, the double colons. Okay, so, and this is the health Management Pro fields from the Health Management Pro screen. Okay, let's say done here. And you can either email them in a list if you wanted to appropriately by how you chose to send them, or you can save them to the iPad and then go later on and send those out as whatever form you want to as far as a saved file. Okay, and of course it would be appropriate how you send them, either DBase or Excel or some form like that, or CSV. Okay, let's say done here. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go down here to print. And now this is similar to the export, only you get to print. And one of the major ones it does in here is you can send PDFs. You can send them as a view to your iPad. You can email them as a part of an email, or you can save a copy of them. Now, view means that you can look at it on the actual screen and how it looks. Now, PDF can be a screen image of what you actually see. Now, you have to keep in mind, if you're sending something to somebody as a PDF, it needs to be at a resolution and or landscape or portrait that will work for them. So you'd probably have to scale it to size, what's appropriate, and then set it to landscape or portrait. Now, if you do portrait and the screen is in landscape, it's going to cut the screen in half. You need to do it in portrait if it calls for that. Take a look at it when you're getting ready to print it to make sure that it's within the area of one piece of paper, and you could change the size if your printer supported that, and you can also set the resolution to whatever you want to. And resolution is important. In this case, it's 150, but 300 or 600. In this particular case, the printer supports that, so it's listed. And actually, when you're looking at this, the printer itself is actually documented in the information that you're going to. For example, this is a Wi-Fi printer. I don't have a printer that's actually physically attached to an iPhone or iPad, but this allows you to give the printer that is in your location, or maybe you have more than one of them, you can pick that particular printer to go to. So let's go ahead and cancel out of here. The next thing I wanted to be able to show you was the insurance area, and this might take a little bit to show you. We didn't finish we didn't finish this. Let's go ahead and do that. Watch, I'm going to stay in this and go over here and say perform the find, and you'll see it flip back over, and it actually showed me that little round circle with how many records were selected. Now if I click in a field, you can see this pops up. That's the target I'm talking about, that if you click on it, it shows you the number of records. In this case, there's only one in selection, but there's more than one record. Well, in this case, there's only one record in the application at this time. But it would show you the one of and the number of records that are total in the application. Do not use these. These are add a new record and delete a record. You do not want to do that. Use the buttons that are supplied in the application, and that's the appropriate way to do things. This button over here is used to go to the next and previous field. So if I click it, it's going to cycle right to the next one. It's an easy way to move through. This one is copy something to the clipboard. And then, of course, if you're adding text, what happens, it'll recommend some text, and you can just click on it. And this is bold, italic, and underline if you want to do that. And this, you can hide this part of the bar by pushing it down by clicking this, or you can say done and go back to the application. Okay, let's go up here to insurance. Insurance is kind of an interesting thing. Depending upon if you have a primary carrier and a secondary carrier as far as your insurance is concerned, in this case it's secondary here, this is one record, another record, and so forth. And then there's summaries of all these records that are in this particular thing. So if I went to and did insurance for a primary carrier, one of the things you're going to have to be aware of is that when you get a piece of paper, for example, that's a bill from the doctor, it's going to have the primary insurance ID. If you have to pay a copay when you visit the doctor, then you would put the appropriate copay in there. Now, interestingly enough, there may be a copay, it's hard to say, primary copay for one or secondary or both. It really depends on if you're visiting another doctor or whatever. So you may have to document both these for all your expenses for taxes at the end of the year. What was the primary billing? In this case, the primary was $129. And if you have a secondary, how much of this was covered by the primary? 80%. So 80% of 129 is 103.20. And what happens is you paid $100 because they billed you for that. That's the amount that the primary paid for. So the insurance company paid this and left a balance that you might have to pay for of $3.20. Now this could be thousands of dollars, and this could be hundreds or thousands of dollars for the primary. If you have a secondary carrier and they cover the difference between the 80 and it's 20 for 100%, you're going to see when you put the 20% in there what the coverage would be for the balance, and you may end up by having to pay some. Now, if you have to pay a balance that's owed, that would be this amount for your balance. And then you would pay it as you show here. You'd put in you paid it. Now, the secondary paid 5 cents. I was only doing this to kind of demonstrate that there could be a balance difference between 64 cents and what they paid and what you would end up by paying. So it's important to note as you're taking the paperwork from your primary carrier, you may have to wait for your secondary carrier to come back and say what they covered. Then you would have to adjust whatever you have to do as far as what you're making the payment for. If they cover 100% of it, then your balance would be zero, and you could put in zero, and then you would have a zero balance as far as the patient pays amount. So these are kind of important. This is what you had to pay as a balance, and this is what you physically paid, and this is what your insurance paid. In this case, the primary carried $100, and the secondary carried 5 cents, which is ridiculous because that had never happened. Now, all the numbers down at the bottom reflect all that, the primary and the secondary, and you'll see all the figures that count. $3.20, 64 cents balance, 5, 59 cents you paid. The primary carrier of 129, you paid a copay of 25, which, by the way, did not come out of the balance that was due. Copays are not included in the actual billed amount. Then you would have a primary paid a sum of $100, left $320, which was carried over to your secondary. If you have questions about how this works, you can always contact support and or on chat on the developer site, and we'll explain what you don't understand. Now, on the secondary, the names are going to be different, and the ID numbers are going to be different as far as the insurance carrier. Okay, let's go over to the history. The next thing we're going to look at, now there's not a lot of information here, but I'll explain. If you have illnesses that have occurred prior to either seeing the doctor and it's a medical history over time, a lot of times the doctor is going to want that particular information about your medical history that happened over time. And what you're basically doing is you try to pull from information that you have or memory, the illness date, the illness type, and this is a drop down that I talked about. This is the one we're going to be editing in the illness type, and you can see this here. And you can add or edit this, and it scrolls, so it adds all these kinds of things, and it has all the different kinds of possible things that and additional ones you can add. And if you actually want to go see that screen, this is where you add it and edit it. You always enter the information in this field up here when you add a new record, and then you would go ahead and add that to the list. And if you wanted to edit one of these, you could edit it by clicking on edit and bring it up to top, and you can go ahead and edit it. In this case, we got something here where there's a facial, but it's lowercase, and you might want to just change that. That's your choice. And then if you want to go back after you've worked on it, you just go back up to here and navigate back. Now, there's one-click navigation throughout the application. One click will take you to any screen in the entire application. So let's go back over to health history. Health history also has what your comments are related to as far as the illness. It may be where you never went to the doctor. But then if you did go to the doctor, what was the diagnosis? And what, if any, procedure was performed, or did you have to go to a different doctor, like a referring doctor up here, that was not your actual family doctor? Now over here, remember, this is all based on the family doctor. So if you had a referring doctor, you would have to create or have information in a new record that was added to this screen that had the referring doctor in this information. From the history standpoint, you would create the same kind of information from that doctor. What does this do? It allows you to keep a history of all the things that have ever happened to you or illnesses and be able to go back and recall them. Now, at my age, I had some issues and have for the last 2 years. Well, I didn't document all that. I wish I had, because now I'm getting asked by every doctor I see over the last 2 years, which is over 8 doctors, to try to remember all that stuff. And that's why these applications are so important, that you have all that information so that you can manage that information and provide it to the client. You could take your iPhone or iPad in the doctor's office as he asks you questions. You can refer to any of the information that is relevant to that illness and have that information. Now let's look at a couple different things that we didn't cover. Let's go down here and talk about the add website. What this does is there's a screen here where you can come in and you can create a new record, which I spoke about before, and you can copy and paste the URL from the website that you're interested in. You can go visit it, paste it in here, and then name what that particular site is. In this case, it's the Mayo Clinic. If I wanted to go see more, I could go over here and I could say next record, and now I've got google.com where I may want to do some searches. But let's make this even easier for you. Let's go over to the actual portal where we're looking at and go to the website list view, and these are all of the different locations where you have websites that you want to view. And if you're looking for the website on one of these screens, when you're going through it, what it's going to do is it's going to allow you to go through and in the actual portal, when you see the website, you're going to be able to go and pick that website, and it's going to bring it up and actually show it to you. So let's go try to do that, and we're going to find out. Pause for a second to move to this record so we don't have to go watch that. Basically what you're looking at in here is this is the appointment screen portal. The portals are larger views with more able to read easier and a little bit more information about what you're supposed to be doing in here. And this explains how to get the URLs and how to use them. Let's go up here and it says add a website, which will take you back to the website portal where we're at. And this one actually shows what is the current website. So if I click over here, in this case, it's going to bring up whatever website was loaded in. In this case, it's WebMD. So as I'm speaking here, we're going to see WebMD pop up on the screen. Now this does require an internet connection to use for the popover. So if you're looking for a website and you're out away from a website where you have Wi-Fi, but if you have 4G or LTE or 3G, you can actually go ahead and see that. Now I'm going to pop this up and show you that it has a drop down. And for example, if I click on Google, Google pops right up. It has kind of an interesting illustration in here today as far as this is concerned. Obviously, it's Frederick Douglass, whoever that is. So you could go ahead and go into this, or for example, I can do more, and maybe I want to go over to the calendar or my Gmail or YouTube or go to maps or photos or whatever. I can do that from here, or I can look for images. So you have a lot of relevant things you can do in here. But the main one you want to do is probably, let's go over to Mayo Clinic. Maybe you want to look up an illness and or information about it. Well, you can go to Mayo Clinic and you can go through that particular thing and do some research or look at procedures that are going to be done that you may have to go through so you understand what's going to happen if you go to the doctor. Okay, so let's go back and just repeat a little bit of here. So if I wanted to see the list of websites, I could go here and I could actually pop in and see the one that I was editing as far as the one that was in WebMD, or I can add new ones in that screen here to add as many websites as I need for my research and information that I'd like to have. Okay, so let's finish up, and I'll just take one real quick look down here and make sure we didn't miss anything. Let's take a look at one of these portals. For example, let's go to the medical condition portal. Now this is kind of an interesting one, and I want to show you this before we leave. You can notice that it does have the map and prescription information still covering over here, and the reason being is this is the medical condition, and you may want to look at the prescriptions that you actually had, and that's related to the two fields that we saw on the main screen here that we can review. And also we talked about taking photos of images, so this is where I was going to come back to. This is a scrolling area here that if you add additional records, you can add to this. You can also do a description of the image, but I'm going to go into the portal and show you where the actual large view is so you can see something. If I banged up my knee, I could have a picture of that banged up knee in here if I wanted to. And how do you do that? Well, you click in here, and what happens, or tap in there on the iPad, you can replace the current image, or you can add one from your photo library. You can export it, delete it, or view it in a full size. So you have the option to do that in this larger screen. If I say done, this will disappear, and now you're out of here. Now, as usual, you can do the find by doing do action and find, and then put in any information or a date in here to see that particular photo that you wanted to see. Or once again, you can just go backward to the portal where we were just at, which was the medical condition portal. And you can now go in here and then work through the different information in here. It shows the doctor, and in this case you can see the map to the doctor's location and the prescriptions that were related. And in this case, if you had a related prescription in here that was related to this injury or whatever, you could read about it and make sure that you have the proper thing. This is probably really nice though. In some cases, if doctors give you information for a prescription and it's over the counter, it's very important that you write it down so when you go there, you know how to find what you're looking for. And if you had it, say, on your iPhone or your iPad, the doctor or a person at the pharmacist would be able to give you that information and point you in the right direction for it. Now, as I always say in these applications, if you have any information, you have free technical support. So always get in contact with us if you get lost or you need help or you need support. Thank you.